Rentaro Ajo stood frozen under the massive cherry blossom tree as his 100th confession was brutally rejected. He dropped to his knees on the stone path while tears welled up in his eyes. Suddenly, a blinding golden light erupted directly in front of the distraught high schooler. An old man with a long white beard and glowing divine robes emerged from the brilliant flash. The entity introduced himself solemnly as the god of love, responsible for human destiny. Rentaro blinked rapidly as he tried to process this absurd supernatural encounter. The god of love cleared his throat awkwardly and scratched the back of his neck. He confessed that a massive administrative blunder in the heavens had deeply altered Rentaro's fate. Instead of the standard single soulmate, Rentaro had been mistakenly assigned exactly 100 of them. The deity's tone shifted to absolute gravity as he delivered a catastrophic warning. If any of these soulmates failed to achieve mutual love with him, they would suffer a fatal freak accident. Rentaro realized with absolute certainty that he had to make every single one of them perfectly happy. The next morning, Rentaro walked through the school gates with his heart hammering against his ribs. Suddenly, a sweet-looking girl with long pink hair and a curvaceous figure bumped right into him. A literal bolt of romantic lightning zipped between their eyes the exact moment they locked gazes. Before he could speak, a fierce girl with blonde twin tails forcefully pushed her way between them. Another dramatic shockwave of destiny struck Rentaro as he met the gaze of the blonde girl. Rentaro stood paralyzed as both girls instantly began acting incredibly attached to him. Hikari laced her arm through his gently, leaning her soft cheek against his shoulder. Karan aggressively grabbed his other arm, shouting that she didn't even care about him at all. Throughout the entire school day, Rentaro found himself caught in a fierce tug-of-war between the two. During lunchtime, Hikari offered him a beautifully arranged homemade bento box with a loving smile. Karani shoved her own slightly messy bento into his face, claiming she just made too much by accident. Rentaro carefully took a bite from each lunchbox, praised both girls equally, and sweated profusely. The atmosphere turned icy as Hikari and Karan locked eyes over Rentaro's head. Realizing the danger of an imminent confrontation, Rentaro desperately tried to change the subject. After school, both girls requested to meet him privately behind the old gym building at the exact same time. Hikari stepped forward first, her pink hair swaying softly in the warm evening breeze. She confessed her deep love for him, stating that she felt an undeniable, instant soul connection. Karan marched forward, stomping her foot loudly on the grass to break the romantic mood. She yelled out her own confession, demanding that he take responsibility for making her feel this way. Rentaro stood caught between them, knowing that choosing one would doom the other to absolute tragedy. He took a deep breath, looked both girls directly in the eyes, and made an unprecedented decision. Rentaro confessed that he loved them both equally and asked them to enter a polyamorous relationship with him. Hikari gaped at him in utter disbelief, her eyes widening at the sheer audacity of his proposal. Karan screamed in outrage, demanding to know how he could say something so incredibly shameless. Rentaro didn't back down, bowing deeply to them and explaining his absolute devotion to their happiness. Touched by his intense sincerity, Hikari smiled softly and stepped forward to accept his hand. Karan huffed loudly, grumbling fiercely before placing her own hand into his right palm. Rentaro smiled brightly as he held the hands of his first two official soulmates under the evening sky. However, a sudden powerful chill ran straight down Rentaro's spine as the wind picked up violently. In the deep shadows of the school building, a mysterious glow emanated from the direction of the library windows. The divine ledger in his mind suddenly pulsed violently, indicating that a third soulmate was already nearby and in hidden distress. The violent pulsing of the divine ledger within Rentaro's mind sent a jolt of pure panic straight down his spine. He sprinted away from the crowded hallway, guided by a strange magnetic pull that grew stronger with every step. The invisible string of fate led him directly to the heavy, polished wooden doors of the school library. Pushing the doors open, he was instantly greeted by the comforting, musty scent of thousands of old paper pages. Sitting quietly on a small step stool in the deepest corner of the aisle was a remarkably tiny girl. As their eyes locked across the quiet room, a brilliant flash of cosmic electricity suddenly jolted through both of their hearts. Rentaro realized with absolute certainty that this fragile, doll-like student was officially his third destined soulmate. The young girl, Shizuka Yoshimoto, immediately pulled her oversized storybook upward to shield her blushing face. When Rentaro gently tried to speak to her, She clutched her smartphone tightly but remained entirely mute. A computerized text-to-speech voice suddenly emanated from her device, explaining her extreme communication anxiety. Rentaro learned that she could only communicate by selecting specific pre-written sentences from her favorite digital novels. Determined to make her feel safe, Rentaro spent hours sitting cross-legged on the floor, reading alongside her in complete harmony. He manually programmed a specialized app to help index her favorite phrases, breaking down her thick wall of isolation. Shizuka's eyes sparkled with pure happiness as she realized someone finally understood her unique way of speaking. With a joyful chime from her phone, she officially confessed her deep affection, sealing her place in Rentaro's growing heart. However, integrating a third girlfriend required immediate delicate diplomatic meetings with his fiercely protective first two soulmates. Hikari and Kurane initially pouted aggressively, their possessive instincts flaring up at the sight of the adorable new addition. Yet, Shizuka's overwhelming, pint-sized innocence quickly melted their defenses, causing both girls to instantly adopt her like a precious little sister. Rentaro wiped a tear of immense relief from his eye, proud that his unconventional family was successfully working together. The peace was short-lived, as the next morning brought Rentaro face-to-face with an entirely different kind of emotional fortress. Walking past him was Nano Aiko, a beautiful girl known across the school for her unmatched machine-like academic perfection. The moment their paths crossed, the divine sparks erupted yet again, more powerful and shocking than any instance before. Nano stopped in her tracks, turning her cold, analytical gaze directly onto Rentaro with zero visible human emotion. She bluntly stated that romance was completely inefficient, dismissing the sudden biological anomaly of their attraction as a waste of temporal resources. Rentaro panicked, knowing that if she permanently rejected the bond, the divine curse would literally end her life. He immediately launched a full-scale romantic campaign, tracking her highly optimized daily schedule to prove the value of love. Nano calculated everything down to the millisecond, walking at a mathematically optimized pace that left Rentaro completely breathless. To counter her logic, Rentaro formally challenged her to a date, promising to maximize her personal efficiency through cooperative partnership. Intrigued by his bizarre data points, Nano agreed to the experiment purely to mathematically disprove the concept of love once and for all. Their weekend date at the local amusement park quickly turned into a high-speed optimization trial. Nano insisted on riding the roller coasters with a completely flat, deadpan expression, analyzing the G-force vectors in real time. No matter how beautiful the scenery was, she categorized every single fun activity as a mere conversion of calories into useless kinetic energy. Rentaro realized that standard romantic gestures would never penetrate her thick armor of ironclad logic. As the sun began to set, he dragged her onto the massive Ferris wheel, determined to show her a completely unquantifiable view. Inside the quiet, enclosed glass cabin, the frantic noise of the bustling amusement park below slowly faded into absolute silence. Rentaro gently took her digital camera, deleted all her analytical data charts, and instead forced her to just look out the window. As the cabin reached the very peak, the entire city layout erupted into a breathtaking, shimmering sea of endless golden lights. For the first time in her life, Nano's internal logical processing completely short-circuited under the weight of pure, unadulterated beauty. She softly confessed that this feeling defied all scientific calculation, leaning forward to accept Rentaro's love with a beautiful, rare smile. Suddenly, the romantic tranquility shattered as Rentaro's phone erupted with a frantic, terrified text message from Hikari back at school. An eccentric upperclassman named Kusuri had just unleashed an experimental drug into the school's central ventilation system. The divine ledger in Rentaro's mind began to spin completely out of control, warning him that the entire girlfriend roster was currently in mortal peril. The divine ledger in Rentaro's mind began to spin completely out of control, warning him that the entire girlfriend roster was currently in mortal peril. Desperate to find the source of this impending doom, Rentaro sprinted down the concrete corridors toward the neglected science wing. A loud bubbling explosion suddenly echoed from behind the worn wooden doors of the chemistry laboratory. Coughing through the colorful haze, Rentaro burst inside to find a remarkably petite upperclassman wearing a wildly oversized lab coat. The eccentric girl introduced herself as Kusuri Yakuzan, a brilliant but completely unhinged genius who spent her days crafting highly illegal experimental drugs. The moment their eyes locked, the unmistakable cosmic spark of the god of love struck them both like a bolt of lightning. Kusuri immediately climbed onto Rentaro's shoulders, declaring him her newest test subject and destined soulmate without a shred of hesitation. To celebrate their fated meeting, she proudly revealed a strange, glowing pink solution she dubbed the ultimate kissing elixir. She explained that the serum was designed to enhance romantic urges, though she had not yet conducted proper safety testing on live subjects. Before Rentaro could issue a warning, a sudden clumsy stumble caused the volatile flask to slip directly out of Kusuri's tiny hands. The glass shattered violently against the floor, instantly releasing a dense, sweet-smelling pink vapor into the ventilation system of the school. Within minutes, the strange pink gas had completely spread throughout every single classroom, library, and common area on campus. Rentaro's existing girlfriends, who were gathering near the courtyard, breathed in the sweet mist and immediately froze in their tracks. Their eyes completely lost their normal light, replaced instead by swirling, hypnotic pink hearts that glowed with an insatiable hunger. Kusuri shrieked in realization, explaining that the airborne chemical had completely stripped away human reason, turning everyone into mindless kiss zombies. Anyone bitten or kissed by an infected person would instantly join the ravenous horde, seeking out fresh lips to claim. Suddenly, the heavy metal door of the laboratory began to rattle violently under the weight of an approaching crowd. Shizuka and Nano appeared through the window, their usual calm demeanors entirely replaced by aggressive, love-struck tracking expressions. Rentaro barricaded the doorway with a heavy wooden teacher's desk just as the first wave of amorous zombies broke the glass. Kusuri scrambled through her remaining supplies, desperately looking for the specific ingredients needed to brew a neutralizing antidote. She revealed that the critical stabilizing agent was located in the primary medicine cabinet all the way on the other side of the campus. Realizing his beloved girlfriends were trapped in this terrifying state, Rentaro knew he had to embark on a dangerous stealth mission. Peeking out into the main corridor, they witnessed a chaotic scene of students chasing each other with wide-open arms and puckered lips. Rentaro and Kusuri crept along the ceiling rafters, carefully avoiding the grasping hands of the infatuated students below. A sudden loud sneeze from Kusuri shattered their cover, instantly drawing the attention of the entire horde directly upward. Hikari and Karin stood directly beneath them, locking onto Rentaro's position with predatory precision and terrifying speed. The two love-struck girls began scaling the school lockers like professional rock climbers, completely driven by their corrupted romantic instincts. Rentaro leaped from the pipes down to the floor, executing a perfectly timed roll to avoid their clutching embraces. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him, leading the ever-growing parade of affectionate monsters away from the primary care office. Nano suddenly cut off his escape route by stepping out from a side classroom, her arms wide open for an unstoppable calculation of love. Utilizing his deep knowledge of her personality, Rentaro pulled a high-grade mathematical textbook out of his bag and threw it to the side. Nano's rational brain briefly misfired, causing her to instinctively chase after the textbook and leaving the path wide open. Rentaro slid past her and finally reached the heavy oak double doors of the main campus storage facility. Inside, Kusuri quickly located the rare chemical stabilizer sitting safely on the top shelf of an iron storage cabinet. However, their celebration was cut short as the windows of the storage room shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces. Hikari and Karin burst through the broken frame together, their unified gaze focusing squarely on Rentaro's lips. Rentaro pinned himself against the back wall, holding his hands up as his two original soulmates closed the distance rapidly. Kusuri frantically poured the blue stabilizer into a portable smoke grenade, preparing to unleash the localized cure. Just as she went to pull the pin, a rogue infected student grabbed Kusuri from behind, causing her to drop the incomplete antidote. As the antidote rolled away into the darkness, Hikari and Karin lunged forward simultaneously, their lips mere millimeters away from Rentaro's face. Rentaro narrowly avoided the incoming kiss zombies by throwing himself flat onto the dirty floor. He grabbed the runaway antidote vial just as it was about to shatter against the wall. With a swift movement, he uncorked the bottle and dispersed the neutralizing mist into the air. The girls instantly recovered their senses as the chaotic kiss zombie epidemic finally concluded. However, a sudden heavy silence fell over the group as Hikari looked down at her glowing phone screen. She confessed that her strict mother was forcing her to transfer schools and leave Rentaro forever. Before anyone could stop her, she ran out into the night to face her family destiny alone. Rentaro refused to let his soulmate disappear without a fierce fight. He gathered the remaining girlfriends to formulate a reckless infiltration plan. The next evening, the group arrived at the massive iron gates of the Hanazono estate. They carefully bypassed the outer security cameras by utilizing Kusuri's specialized invisibility smoke. Rentaro scaled the sheer stone wall of the mansion using bare hands and sheer willpower. He slipped through an open window and found himself in a lavishly decorated private library. Sitting gracefully on a velvet couch was the imposing matriarch of the family, Hana Hanazono. Suddenly, the world slowed down as Rentaro's eyes locked directly with Hana's piercing gaze. A massive, undeniable cosmic shockwave struck Rentaro's soul as he recognized her as a soulmate. Hana stood up quickly, ignoring her own internal confusion to demand his immediate departure. Rentaro stood his ground firmly, proclaiming his absolute love for her daughter, Hikari. Hana scoffed loudly, asserting that a mere high schooler could never provide true happiness. From a high balcony overlooking the library, Hikari suddenly appeared with tears streaming down her face. In her frantic emotional state, Hikari lost her footing and flipped over the high railing. Rentaro reacted instantly, sprinting forward without a single thought for his own safety. He caught Hikari tightly in his arms, but the momentum carried them both straight through a large glass window. They plunged rapidly toward the dark garden below as Hana screamed out in absolute horror. Rentaro twisted his torso in midair to ensure he would cushion the impending impact completely. They crashed violently through a thick, dense hedge that managed to break their fatal momentum. Rentaro lay on the soft grass, bruised but smiling warmly as Hikari remained completely unharmed. Hana rushed down the grand stairs outside, her elegant composure entirely shattered by the event. Seeing Rentaro's willingness to sacrifice his life opened her eyes to the depth of his devotion. Rentaro looked directly into Hana's eyes and confessed that he now loved both her and her daughter equally. Hikari gaped in utter astonishment before processing the sheer absurdity of the revelation. Hana blushed deeply as her long-repressed desires surfaced under his mesmerizing soulmate gaze. Realizing they were destined partners, Hana finally accepted Rentaro's bizarre but absolute love. The other girlfriends emerged from the bushes, cheering wildly at the unexpected victory. With the family conflict fully resolved, Hana canceled the school transfer immediately. Days later, the entire expanded harem gathered together peacefully in the sunny school courtyard. Rentaro looked around at his diverse soulmates, feeling an immense sense of fulfillment and responsibility. Hikari and Karain leaned against his shoulders simultaneously, their old rivalry now transformed into deep mutual respect. Every single major conflict had been cleared away, leaving only absolute harmony in their unique dynamic. Rentaro raised his eyes toward the bright blue sky, fully prepared to love all 100 soulmates with everything he had.